Twitter permanently suspending Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's personal verified account. Twitter says that it's due to repeated violations of its COVID-19 misinformation policy. Greene tweeted Saturday about vaccine deaths, which she says are ignored. This prompted a fifth strike, meaning her account will not be restored. Twitter in a statement saying that it's been clear about its strike system and the repeated violations mean a permanent suspension. The Congresswoman then turned her focus to Getter, that's Gettr, writing, quote, "Twitter is an enemy to America and can't handle the truth." Lee, Getter is an alternative platform started by Jason Miller, who a former Trump advisor. And I think the big boost wasn't Marjorie Taylor Greene, it was Joe Rogan getting a Getter account just in case. But what do you make of this kerfuffle on Twitter over the weekend?
You know, it's a really tough situation. I understand Twitter's position that they want to make sure that they're correcting misinformation. They don't want to be responsible for this kind of information getting out there. And some of the things that she has put out before this particular tweet was, I think some might argue, was relatively egregious as far as statements go about about COVID itself and about the COVID vaccine. The problem, though, with what Twitter did is that in some ways she's getting more attention now than she would have otherwise. And the idea she's going to become somewhat of an icon, and people that are following in her beliefs and believe the same thing, that either COVID isn't a real threat, that the vaccine is worse than COVID itself, and all of the things that she's putting out there. Now she's going to become somewhat of an icon to these people. People are going to follow her wherever she goes, and she's going to get a bigger mouthpiece, I think, in other places than she might have if she had just were sort of relatively ignored here. But it's a tough position. The other thing then is, what does this mean for Twitter? Is Twitter going to be editing its content? And what does that mean for regulating a platform like Twitter? So all of these things are really important questions. And the real question is Twitter handling this in the right way?
Well, Twitter's already edited its content by censoring a true story right before the election published by the New York Post about Hunter Biden and his laptop. And then on the other hand, Ken, there is Russia collusion still all over the Twitter platform, which was a lie peddled by the left. And that is straight from fellow Congress people of Marjorie Taylor Greene. So my issue is, one, it's better to allow the group to handle Marjorie Taylor Greene and to fact check individuals, but Twitter's digging its own grave.
I think so. Look at the stock. I mean, that could tell you something right there. I mean, when you lose half your audience, okay, half the people in this country voted one way, half the people voted the other way. That's not a really good business model, Dagan, to lose half your potential base there. And, you know, what I read from what she put out, I think she's trying to interpret the data like we all are. Look, we're all trying to follow the science for our own families, right? We all want to do the right thing, but it's not easy. Is it the UK science? Is it the Israel science? Is it Fauci science? Don't use a mask, use one mask, use two masks, put a mask on your elbow. We're all trying to figure this out together. And by putting opinions out there, she's not trying to be a doctor to anybody. She's putting together some of these stats and her interpretation of it. Now, if we're going to start taking down people's interpretation on Twitter, where do we go then? We go something like China communism. That's where we go with this.
It's just, and by the way, Getter was all the rage. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. But with Joe Rogan and Getter, look out. Coming up.